On this episode of the Sit Down Morning Show with Malik Wright, presented by TWSN, we'll be discussing Zack Taylor's future with the Cincinnati Bengals and so much more. Get your popcorn ready.
Shout out Young Swisher.
Get up, let me begin. This is TWSN. You ain't heard about us yet, well you better know now, because it's the place that it all goes down. Get up, let me begin. This is TWSN. You ain't heard about us yet, well you better know now, because it's the place that it all goes down.
Shout out Young Swisher.
Okay, so the crash outs can commence. They can stop, right? They can stop. Thank you guys for joining us for another episode of the Sit Down Morning Show with Malik Wright, presented by the Right Way Sports Network. I'm your host, Malik Wright, joined always by my guy, my best friend, 𝗦𝗢𝗔𝗎𝗓𝗍. A lot of stuff to get into, a lot of stuff to talk about. But before we do, make sure you guys do us a huge favor. Give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or when we upload content from the TWSN studios. Daniel, we have a lot to discuss, namely here in Cincinnati with Zack Taylor, with Cincinnati, with his future, the whole 9 yards. A lot of Bengals fans are up in arms. And you know what? Instead of going right into that topic, I'm going to discuss a couple of things because I don't want to rush that topic. Okay. I want to take my time with that topic. Okay. I want to peel it back layer by layer. Okay. So we'll get to the Zack Taylor thing. Right? So if you could put that down on the ticker below, we'll get to the Zack Taylor conversation. We will. And there's a lot to talk about when it comes to that. But before we do, I think we should start off in the let's start off with the shocking victory, right? Browns defeat the Green Bay Packers, right? No one saw that happening. No one had that on their bingo card, but it shows you that defense still wins championships. Or I'm sorry, defense still gives you victories in the National Football League. Daniel, what are your thoughts on that game?
Yeah, man, this was one of my favorite games of the entire week. And once again, we appreciate you guys tuning in. You guys can drop your comments and thoughts below. But Malik, there's a couple takes I have for this game, right? Immediately when I look at this game, the Packers are fine. They're going to be fine.
Yeah, sure.
But what I look at, and this is my first take on this, is I was watching that game and I'm comparing Myles Garrett and Micah Parsons. I don't think it's close. I don't think Micah Parsons is even close to what Myles Garrett brings to an NFL defense. I like Micah Parsons. I think that it was a much needed move for the Packers, but just watching that game and seeing the difference of caliber of players, because Parsons, before the game or 2 days before said, hey, I believe I'm the best besides of Myles Garrett. And I don't think he's wrong by saying that, because Myles Garrett is so dominant to where they are adding a tight end to block him. They are adding a running back to chip him. And Micah Parsons is getting similar attention, but he is not doing anywhere near what Myles Garrett is doing, except when he's got the one-on-one with an offensive tackle. I like how they use Micah Parsons. They put him, at the quote-unquote middle linebacker spot. They're doing a lot of different things, but just watching that game, it is very clear how much more impactful Myles Garrett is. And I was just shocked because I've watched Myles Garrett, him being in the AFC North, but to see the difference, not only that, but the pure snap count, it was kind of shocking to me. You've talked about it before on the Cowboys, but seeing at multiple times Micah Parsons just coming off the field on first and second down, coming in a third down, they are two different caliber of players. So I just want to shout that out first off. And second, the Cleveland Browns have a very, very sneaky roster. They do. And one of the things that they do exceptionally well is that defensive line, right? Mason Graham, phenomenal talent. He was getting bashed early on in his career, but people forget they traded that number 2 overall pick for Travis Hunter. They got Mason Graham. And not only that, but they got one of the best rookie running backs right now, Quinshawn Judkins. The guy went out 90 yards, 5 receptions, scored a tutty. The only touchdown that the Browns scored. This Browns defense, this Browns team, they are feisty. And I have to give my apologies to Kevin Stefanski and this team, because I believe that this team can be scrappy. And I believe that they are still reeling from the Deshaun Watson, trade package. And I feel like slowly but surely, once they figure out who their quarterback is, this Cleveland Browns team can be like a Pittsburgh Steelers team that's always around that 9-win threshold. So like I said, looking at the Packers, this was, they always say styles make fights, and this was a perfect style for the Cleveland Browns, because if you can get pressure on Jordan Love and you can make life a living hell, they were one-dimensional. Josh Jacobs, I believe, had 30 rushing yards in this game. He was basically nullified to being a check down merchant out of the backfield. He had 5 receptions, but this is how you beat the elite teams, with a pass rush. So shout out to them. Denzel Ward had a phenomenal game, blocked a field goal, as well as the rookie linebacker Carson Schweshinger made some massive plays. So like you said, defense wins games, and I was very, very impressed. I think the Cleveland Browns team, I think they can start to turn it around, and I just have to apologize to Stefanski, because I think he's still their guy.
I like Kevin Stefanski, but we all know Jimmy Haslam has a quick trigger. I don't think, unfortunately, as much as I think he is that guy and he could be their guy, I don't think he's going to be given any more wiggle room to be their guy. I hope that makes sense. I like him. I do. I really do. But I think we got to deal with the world reality. And unfortunately, when it comes to the Cleveland Browns, they do not deal in a world of reality. There is clearly a quarterback issue. There's clearly they don't have that guy of the future that they could rely on. If they did, guess what? We wouldn't be rolling out Joe Flacco at age 40 something to be our starting quarterback. So this is, unfortunately, at some point, it is on Stefanski. It is on Andrew Berry. It is on those guys, right? Because it's like, well, you put all your eggs in one basket and you went all in to get Deshaun Watson. It did not work out, right? So what does the future hold for you? What does this thing look like? How is this going to, so I don't know. It's a lot. It's a lot to unpack there. But good win by the Cleveland Browns. This is a morale booster. This is something that they need when Browns fans are looking for some sort of hope, some sort of thing to cling on to. Well, guess what? They just got it. How about their kicker, Andrew Smith? They stuck by him through the missed field goal against the Bengals week 1, and he nails a game winner for them here. So that's awesome. You love to see stories like that. Wish it wasn't the Browns. But, at the end of the day, you got to give credit where credit is due. They beat the Green Bay Packers. Everyone's survivor pools just absolutely crashed and burned yesterday. So it's one of those things where, you look at it, you take it on the chin, and you keep moving forward. I want to keep moving forward. I want to move on over to Jalen Hurts. He had a weird reaction. If you guys didn't get a chance to watch, Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles survived a victory against the Rams where a player in Jared Verse lost the chain. It was a weird one in Philly. It was just an absolute weird one. But there's a clip that I want to show you of Jalen Hurts' reaction after the game. Marissa.
Joshua Carty has it blocked again. This time Jordan Davis, the big man, looks for the icing on one big cake. Eagles hang on.
For me, that reaction is so forced. For me, that reaction is so, it's not real. Like, I hate to be that guy, but at the end of the day, you're the quarterback. You didn't play good. You didn't play great today. You struggled. It's a team game. Football is a team game, right? These things are going to happen. You're going to have bad games. You're going to struggle. But to not smile, to not be happy, to walk around as if you're pissed at the world or got this chip on your shoulder, it's a weird thing, man. For me, it's strange. What other player? I mean, it's all right to be hard on yourself, but football is a team sport. It's the reason why you have 3 position groups. The reason why you have offense, defense, and special teams. Somebody's got to show up, right? And guess what? Every game, it won't be the defensive game. Every game won't be the offensive game. Every game won't be the special teams game. Who can uplift what unit? Who can make that game-changing play? But you're the quarterback. You're the leader. You are the face of the franchise. Aren't you going to be happy for the kicker to make that kick? Aren't you going to be happy for your – aren't you going to be happy for your defensive tackle to block that kick and then run it in? Aren't you going to be somewhat celebratory to a degree because you did get a victory? In the NFL, the win margin is so slim. I don't know. For me, it felt a little bit forced, Daniel.
Yeah, it's a little corny. I ain't gonna lie. Like I think throughout the game he was showing emotion, which is good. After he scored the touchdown, after the AJ Brown catch, he was showing emotion, which I'm happy about. But it's just weird. It's weird. And like I said, the dude doesn't care about my opinion. Sure, he just won a Super Bowl. Good for him. Good for the Eagles. But it's just a little weird. Like, and maybe that he's proven that's his shtick, and he's proven like, hey, He's made it to the top of the game. He is well respected. He is a leader within their locker room. I understand, but it's just a little weird. And maybe call me a hater, but I'm gonna be a hater, right? It's similar to when people look at the NBA and say like Shea and their entire team is kind of corny, the post-game interviews, that stuff's corny. Doesn't mean they're not a great player, but I just thought that reaction as well, like it's like, bro, like you just won. You were about to lose, blocked field goal. Everybody else, your head coach is running right past you, and stone face cold, nothing, just on to the next. So, like I said, I thought it was kind of corny. But the Eagles, man, they're 3-0 for lack of better, for right or for wrong. All 3 games should have been losses. They find a way to win. So, I was very impressed with how they managed to score 26 straight points on the Los Angeles Rams. And I'm curious to see when they end up getting, kind of checked. But they're the class of the NFL right now. They're 3-0. And watching that game, I will say I think Jalen Hurts is in the wrong with their usage for A.J. Brown, because I rewatched A.J. Brown's targets. Malik, he is that guy. He is phenomenal. And I was just kind of shocked to see early on in the season they weren't using him. And what do you know? They throw at him 9 times. He goes for six receptions, 110 and a touchdown, 5 broken tackles. Like, what are we talking about? They need to go to the best players. And if they wouldn't have started doing that late in the game, Jalen Hurts wouldn't have started taking the deep shots, they would have lost this game. But good for them for finally going out there and utilizing the weapons. So,
yeah, credit to the Eagles for finding a way to be victorious. We're going to talk more about that. I will say that, we talked about it a while ago, man, where we talked about A.J. Brown and should he request trade, yada, yada, yada. It's weird. Every now and again, he has games where he just absolutely makes an impact. He has some games where he's just completely blank. You don't see anything from him. I believe that the Eagles have a lot to unpack there, but I just want to see the leader of the Philadelphia Eagles be a little bit more, I don't know, excited, happy after a victory. Maybe it's just realizing you weren't good enough today. I have no idea. And guess what? There are plenty of quarterbacks that struggle with the fact that, they didn't play well and they didn't contribute as much as they'd like to a victory. At the end of the day, it's a victory. You got to, in the NFL, they're so hard to come by. They're few far in between, so at the end of the day, I really will hope that Jalen Hurts works on that whole thing. I just think he's an awkward individual, just to be completely honest with you. Want to move the conversation on over to, let's talk about C.J. Stroud and the Texans. But before we do, if you guys could do us a favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or upload content from the TWSN studios. We'll be talking about Jackson Dart. We'll be talking about the Texans. We'll be talking about our favorite bets for Ravens and Lions coming up. And our final topic of the day, which will be coming up shortly, will be Zack Taylor and the Cincinnati Bengals future. So I'm looking forward to talking those topics, but just give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications. Daniel, let's go to the Texans. What happened to C.J. Stroud and the Texans? Ever since C.J. Stroud attempted to big brother Caleb Williams last year, things just seem to have fallen off the just to become put it blunt. It's been a shit show, right? I don't think that's a secret. What do you think happened to them, though, man?
It's a colossal failure from everybody, and I'll go person by person, but it starts off with the offensive line. We talk about the offensive line elsewhere in a lot of different places. Yeah. Heading into the season, just in a vacuum, you get rid of your best left tackle and you expect your offensive line to be better. You trade him away and you draft a second-round rookie and you expect right away for this offensive line to be better. This was an offensive line that was ranked 28th in the NFL last year. And you say, hey, our fix is we are going to trade our starting left tackle. So, okay, I understand Tunsil had a ton of penalties last year. Okay, money situation, I get it. Okay, trade him away. But you have to expect growing pains. Also, you get rid of your offensive coordinator, Bobby Slowik.
Yeah, that was your guy.
He was.
That was your guy. But he sucked. He sucked.
He was. But he sucked. You're right. And D'Amico Ryans and him clearly weren't on the same page. So, okay, you get rid of him. Sure, you bring in, you slide in the next guy. And you expect that to be crystal clear right away. It takes time for these things to develop. Okay, let's look at the running game. You expect your running game to be elite, but your starting running back gets hurt and you sign a running back off free agency that's 32 years old. Okay, you expect your starting quarterback, who just was in a slump in the second half of last year, to turn it around. What do you know? When everything else around him isn't great, he starts to falter, because that's how it is in the NFL. If you are not this superb athlete, if you are not this amazing processor, hell, even if you are, if everything around you is faltering, if you are rushing for 2 yards a carry, your offense is going to look like shit. And it finally gets me to CJ Stroud. Malik, I look at what Sam Darnold and the New York Jets, how that failed. And I look at the quote, Sam Darnold seeing ghosts. I think CJ Stroud is seeing ghosts, respectfully. I look at how he performed, and I look at his 2 interceptions in the fourth quarter. Malik, one of those is solely pinned on him. And I think it is just a failure of the entire situation. Their team is in the dumps right now. They are not, going out creating plays. Their offense is lacking elite creativity. And there is just nothing that is scaring opposing defenses about this team besides Nico Collins. And hell, even teams are letting Travis Hunter go one-on-one with Nico Collins. They're not scared of it. So this team has a lot to make up. And being at 0-3, the odds say you have a 2% chance, 2.5% chance to make the playoffs. We'll see if they can right the wrong. But for me, I think this goes much deeper than a quick fix right now this season. This goes into developing your offensive line. This goes into putting resources into your offensive line. This goes into putting resources into your running back. So all around, they are a hot pocket of ass right now, Malik.
Oh my God.
And it is. I watched that game against the Jaguars.
I never thought you would drop that on the show.
No, it's I watched
hot pocket of ass.
They are, because I watched that team, and I watched Trevor Lawrence story, terrible interception. I watched the Jaguars have next to nothing on offense, and the Texans still lost that game. So
it brings the question: was Bobby Slowick scapegoated? Was Bobby Slowick last year's version of Joe Brady with the Carolina Panthers? Was he scapegoated? Was it this decision? Because when you think about the reason why they got rid of Bobby Slowick, issues in protection, issues, right? That, like, seriously, that's what it was. Issues with protection and adjustment. And to me, that sounds like an issue in the head coach and the offensive coordinator. For me, I felt like maybe, just maybe, 𝗦𝗢𝗎𝗪's hot pocket of ass. I'm going to steal that. Somebody said, Kevin says that. To me, it feels like this was more of a personal decision, right? Because how does this guy go from being one of the hottest, coordinator candidates for a head coaching position in the league to now being the Miami Dolphins senior passing game coordinator? How does that work? Unless there was some real heat there. Maybe he didn't love the love that Bobby Slowick was getting, or the credit Bobby Slowick was getting. Because remember, the conversation wasn't about a lot of 𝗦𝗢𝗎𝗪's. It was the job that Bobby Slowick did with CJ Stroud. So that's where egos can kind of get involved. And now all of a sudden, you think the grass is greener on the other side. And now you go from good to worse. And I understand things were not great last year for the Texans, which might have contributed to the move on from a guy like Bobby Slowick. But this is proven to definitely have been a bad call. And I think that's what we were seeing right before our very own eyes. I think that's why we're seeing the regression of CJ Stroud right before our very own eyes. Also, losing Joe Mixon does not help. Joe Mixon was their starting back. Joe Mixon was an absolutely lightning in a bottle for the Houston Texans. And the fact that they were able to get him for, a 6th-round pick, huge. He's done so much for the Houston Texans to alleviate that for a young quarterback. And you know what? That's what a running back does. That's what a good running back does. That's what a good running game does. That's what a good tight end does, right? And they've done things to try to surround CJ Stroud with talent to help him. Guys like Dalton Schultz. They've done things to sort of help him. They tried to bring in Stephon Diggs last year, obviously ACL tear. Can't control that. But he has weapons around him. But for me, there was a lot more work that needed to be done with CJ Stroud. And I feel like that probably wasn't top of mind. That wasn't paramount to a guy like 𝗦𝗢𝗎𝗪's, hence why they moved on from Bobby Slowick. I remember everybody was shocked when they moved on from Bobby Slowick. Everyone was like, what the hell? Why'd you move? This is a guy that was interviewing for head coaching jobs. And maybe that's where it started. Maybe. Right? And I think that now their offensive coordinator is a guy that they brought in. Just want to make sure I get this guy's name right. Nick Caley. Who is he? I don't know. I've never heard of him. Got to do some more deep dive and research on that guy, but it hasn't worked. It's like an absolute shit show. And now guess what? From the conversation going from, well, the offense is bad, it now goes to the Texans are bad, and the Texans are now 0-3. So now you know what brings into question? Maybe 𝗦𝗥𝗓𝗏 Ryan's just a really, really good defensive coordinator. Maybe 𝗦𝗥𝗓𝗏 Ryan's isn't that great of a head coach. Maybe he needs to get more time as a defensive coordinator. That's where right? I mean, we've been doing this. We've been covering the league for a very long time, Daniel. Is that where the conversation transitions to? I think it does. Is 𝗦𝗥𝗓𝗏 Ryan's better served as a coordinator? Because clearly a head coach's job is to obviously look at the entire totality of a team. And if, guess what, the team is falling off and your quarterback, who was highly regarded and you guys spent a premium pick on and all this stuff, it looks like this now? Well, the conversation shifts a little bit. Conversation shifts a little bit. Just my thoughts. Just my thoughts. Let me know in the comment section what you guys think the future of 𝗦𝗥𝗓𝗏 Ryan's is as the head coach of the Houston Texans, and just the future, right? The future of 𝗕𝗔 Stroud. What do you think that's going to look like? Do you guys think that this is fixable? I know Texas fans are really pissed at 𝗕𝗔 Stroud. I don't know if you saw it, Daniel, but he was wearing a New York Yankees hat. In the press conference, and they said, oh my God, this is going to be a long season. I guess people felt like maybe 𝗕𝗔 Stroud is jockeying for, hey, I want to go to a bigger market. Yeah, I don't know if I would go that far. But, you know, the drama is already starting in Houston to a degree. And Texas fans, I feel for you. Hopefully this thing gets a lot better before it gets a lot worse for you. Keeping the conversation rolling, we're going to go from, Texas to New York. All right, it's brought up New York. Giant, dang, I'm just going to ask you this question simple. Should the Giants start Jackson Dart? Is it time to start Jackson Dart? Or do you think Moonball Russell Wilson still could be the guy for Jackson Dart to learn from, gauge what to do? I don't know. What are your thoughts? I will just say this. Performance last night was uninspiring. Multiple shots to the end zone where nobody was actually, in fact, in the end zone. Danny, what are your thoughts on Russell Wilson? What are your thoughts on Jackson Dart? I already view Jackson Dart as my favorite quarterback prospect, not named Cam Moore, coming out of this year's draft. What were your thoughts, though?
At this point, you have to start him. I think you have to. And maybe you prolong it a little bit, right? For me, at 0-3, like I said, everything needs to go out the window at 0-3. I understand everybody's game plan. I understand everybody's excitement for the season. At 0-3, everything's got to go out the window. And you need some sort of infusion of something, because I'm looking at Brian Daboll. Hate to say your job's probably done if you don't turn this around.
You know what the part that sticks out to me, though, Daniel? They could have won last night's game.
Yep.
They could have won last night's game. They could have beaten the Kansas City Chiefs 100%.
Yep.
For Malik Neighbors to get limited amount of targets the way he did, was he even targeted in the first? I think one time he was targeted in the first half. He had a catch in the first half. This is a guy that was literally completely blanked from the offense. And that's not what you like to see. That's not what you hope to see, right? From a guy, again, that you spent a premium pick on. But that's not on Malik Neighbors. Malik Neighbors can't throw himself the football. That is on who? That is on Russell Wilson. That is on Daboll, right? And for me, if Brian Daboll wants to keep this ship steady, the one thing you got to do is throw the young quarterback in there. For me, there's not too much that Jackson Dart is going to learn sitting and riding the pine. For me, we've seen this story, though, before. We've seen this story before, man. The coach, he sticks with the widely veteran. He sticks with the former Super Bowl champ, Russell Wilson. And you let Russ cook.
Yeah.
And then when it gets too late, the tooth gets a little too long in the season. You know what you do? Say, you know what? Now we're going to put the young guy in. Well, at this point, your job is fucked, right? At this point, your job is screwed. So what do you do then? Well, it's nothing you really can do. Yeah. You're gonna let the rookie quarterback start. Somebody's going to come in and take your job next year and reap the benefits for all the great work that they did with Jackson Dart. We've seen this story time and time and time again in the National Football League, and it's an unfortunate story, but it's a story that Brian Daboll does not have to be the next victim of. He doesn't have to be. Yeah. You can throw Jackson Dart in there right now. What's the worst that can happen here? 0-3. One thing I've seen out of Jackson Dart is the ability to press forward, the ability to come back, the ability to fight for his team. I've seen that ability, and he also has some running ability too. Brian Daboll, you're lauded for your ability to work with young quarterbacks, namely Josh Allen, okay? Work with this guy. Put this guy in the lineup now. You know it's bad when the announcers are even saying, well, we're going to see Jackson Dart at some point in this game. We got to see Jackson Dart at some point this season. right? I mean, it's gonna come from man. It's gonna come from that. That's the discussion. So if that's the discussion now, do you think the discussion is gonna instantly stop? What you saw from Russell Wilson against the Dallas Cowboys in an overtime loss, was that enough to be like, yeah, Jackson Dart, you're riding the pine rest of the season? And I get it. Sometimes quarterbacks are good to sit on the bench, but at some point you're 0-3. At what point do you look inward and you say, it might be time to make a change now? Might be time, because maybe, just maybe, it's an uphill climb, but maybe this guy saves my ass. Or maybe this guy saves our season. I mean, all Jackson Dart sitting on there with bling on the sideline with a helmet on. Look like he's ready to play. I don't know. If I'm the Giants, I make that switch this week. 0-3. What else you got? What else do you have to lose? Right? Your season's on the downward trajectory. Push forward. Let's see what happens. Anything else you want to add, Dan?
Yeah, it's the only downside I have to this is their schedule is about to get brutal.
So
and that's where I'm looking like, at what point, right, is it best to put them in? And
it's never the right time.
Yeah.
It's never the NFL is not about perfect.
Yeah.
Right? The NFL is not about perfect. And if you disagree, let's talk about this.
Yeah.
I think the NFL is never perfect. There's no such thing as the perfect time in the NFL.
Yeah.
Because guess what? Your ass got to be ready at any point in time to get your number called. At some point, you might get called and say, hey, jump in here. We need you to play now.
Yeah.
It's not looking at the schedule like, oh, we got this team, got that team. Oh, maybe he could start in here. No. As the Adele song says, and I know there's rumors of her playing the Super Bowl, well, Jackson Dart, it's time to maybe start rolling in the deep a little bit. Maybe it's time to throw him in there and see exactly what he's got. I mean, the best way to learn is through experience, and the greatest teacher of experience is actually going through it. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm a fan of Jackson Dart starting now.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the gripe I have with this, and it's twofold. I think that if you're looking to better your team now, like, I think it doesn't hurt to start Jackson Dart now. The only issue that I have with that is, hey, we've seen guys like Lamar, we've seen guys like Mahomes, we've seen guys like Love have success sitting for a little bit, right? Whether that is 4 games or whether that is 8 games or whether that is 10 games, and then coming in having those 8, 10, 12 games in your rookie season, and then going out the following year and having that tape to look back on to say, hey, here's how we grow. For me, I think whether you start Jackson Dart now in week 4 against the Chargers, or you start him in week 8 against the Eagles, or week 9 against the 49ers, or week 10 against the Bears, I think Jackson Dart is going to be the same player come year 2 or come year 3. And that's, for me, my concern is, hey, how confident am I in this offensive line with Jackson Dart going up against the Philadelphia Eagles, with him going up against the Denver Broncos, who are leading or top 3 in the NFL in pressures, or then going right back against the Eagles again, or then going right back against the 49ers. For me, it's about, hey, I think that you got at least one more week for me. And that's just looking at it like, hey, I think you invested in Russell Wilson for a year. And once you go to Jackson Dart, in my opinion, you can't turn back. I'm not going to go and start Jackson Dart and then say, hey, he goes out in the first 2 games and he gets sacked 13 times and says, hey, well, shit, maybe it was too early. So for me, you only have one time and one chance to insert him into the lineup. And from a franchise standpoint, I think it's best to wait a couple more weeks. But from Brian Daboll's standpoint and Joe Shane's standpoint, you have no time to waste. Because, like you said, I'm very...
What did you just call him?
Joe Shane, Joe Schoen?
Joe Schoen. Sorry.
Joe Schoen? Are you sure it's Joe Schoen?
It's Joe Schoen, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I could have sworn I saw somebody on Twitter say it's Joe Shane, but I could be wrong.
Sorry.
No, you're good. But like you said, when you look at those guys, it's you have to fight for your job. You have to. So, yeah, that's the way I look at it. And I think that you've got to win, and you got to win now. And you have to instill some faith in your fan base. And the only way to do that is with the first round pick, Jackson Dart. So he's got to start to save the job.
I agree. I love giving Daniel a little bit of shit every single time we do a show. Listen, I want to keep the conversation rolling, but I want to get you guys' opinion on this whole situation. Like, what would you guys think? What do you guys think the Giants should do? Let us know down in the comment section, because I feel like it's a mixed bag. You don't there's no perfect way to handle the situation. There really isn't a perfect way to handle the situation, but I just feel like for Jackson Dart, you spent a first round pick on him because you believe that, hey, you know what? In the heat of the moment, in the battle, you can win with this guy. You can find a way to win with this guy. That's what I believe. So if I'm the Giants, I'm seriously considering making that move as soon as possible. That's what I'm thinking. I'm making that move as soon as possible, and I have faith in the decision that I made. That's just my thoughts. If you can, again, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or when we upload content. We're going to get to Bengals talk here shortly because we got a lot to discuss there. We have a lot to unpack with the whole Zack Taylor conversation, right? But I want to move on over to our favorite bets for Ravens versus the Lions. Daniel, the floor is yours, my man.
And I'm excited for this game. I think that there's a lot of opportunity. We had a very, very profitable weekend. There was a lot of very good games and a lot of props, in my opinion, that I felt like were somewhat easy to read. And I feel like we did a phenomenal job. So you guys can go down below for our full season long bets. But looking at this game, Lions versus Ravens, first off, this is going to be a pass heavy attack from both teams, I believe. And the reason why I say that, or it's going to trend that way, is both teams have phenomenal rushing defense.
Can I just say one thing really quickly? I didn't give more context to this. And if you want to subscribe to our Patreon, we give all our bets. It's sitting up there right there, the QR code. We really hope, or to the right, we really hope that you guys join us. We really hope that you guys are joining us for the season and make some money. But not only just NFL bets, we have UFC bets. I've been on an absolute heater with UFC recently. Cash on a bet maybe a couple weeks ago for 80 grand. Like, so, it's one of those things where there's been a lot of positive momentum going for our Patreon. And obviously, maybe you don't want to be on the Patreon. The same plays that we give on the Patreon will also be on our website if you subscribe to our betting service on our website. Again, that's two ways you guys can utilize, and all that is down in the comment section. In the description below. The Patreon, you want all of our picks each and every single day. It's funny. Yesterday I was having a really, really bad betting day from just a sheer unluck. I'll give you guys a play that I had yesterday. Again, because we discussed the bad beats, right? We were going to discuss the things that we miss out on, all right? But listen to this Hail Mary parlay that I actually put on the Patreon. It wasn't even necessarily a parlay. It was my favorite plays, but I combined them in a parlay. And I want to share this with you guys. So this was my bet that I gave out yesterday on Patreon. Kyle Pitts, over 3.5 receptions, slapped. Bijan Robinson, over 3.5 receptions, slapped. Jaylen Warren, over 2.5 receptions. He had 5. Jonathan Taylor, over 2.5 receptions. It looked bleak at one point. He hit that as well. Daniel. Daniel. Would have won $30,000. I would have won $30,000 yesterday. All we needed was Ashton Jeanty to have 3 receptions, and it looked like that could happen. Why? Because they were losing bad. So any logical thing, you would think, okay, you got to pass. Well, Ashton Jeanty had 0 receptions in that game. 0 receptions. But luckily yesterday, a very nice bet of Juju Smith-Schuster over 3.5 receptions, right? And it was Cam Scatterbo, 2 receptions. And Tyrone Tracy's prop was sitting at 2.5. But I said to myself, I had a feeling. No. Some said just do Tyrone Tracy, 2 receptions. So I did that. So 2 receptions, Tyrone Tracy, 2 receptions, Cam Scatterbo, 4 receptions for Juju Smith-Schuster. Tyrone Tracy goes out of the game with an injury. And what do you know? It hit. That absolutely saved the betting day. So we cashed out $25,000. So again, it was saved. But these are the type of stuff that we give. Like, people will reach out to me and they'll text me before games via the Patreon and be like, Malik, what are some plays that you love? I didn't really have a strong lean yesterday. So yesterday was like pretty much a shot in the dark. But if you text me as a part of being a part of our Patreon and you say, Malik, Daniel, what are some plays that you guys like for tonight's game? What is a play that I should go with? Or maybe you have a question, should I bet X, Y, Z? Those are the type of advice that we give you. So it's not just our plays, it's truly an interaction as well. So feel free to reach out to us. Feel free to, if you decide to join the Patreon, feel free to reach out to us and see what are some of the plays that we like as well. Because we're in the business of trying to win you guys some money. But Daniel, what are some of your favorite plays for the Ravens versus Lions?
Oh, yeah. I've got a couple. I'll say 2 first, and I'll give my favorite one right at the end. My first one, this is very simple, but it's Sam Laporta. I think that Sam Laporta, looking up against the Baltimore Ravens, the way that the Ravens have been playing their defense, they are really focusing on, those borderline wide receivers. They're focusing on, trying to create pressure and trying to create havoc for the opposing offense. And a lot of people are like, well, they got Kyle Hamilton. Well, Kyle Hamilton isn't always guarding the tight end. They're using Kyle Hamilton in a bunch of different ways. And if you look at what Sam Laporta has done the past 2 games, I mean, the one game right away, he had 6 receptions for 9 targets. So he is being utilized in their offense. And you look at what they did last week, they blew out the Chicago Bears. So that game was over by halftime. He had 4 targets by halftime, didn't get another target the rest of the game. So for me, I look at the game script and I say, hey, I see this being a very close game. There is no world, in my opinion, where the Lions go up by 21 points and this game's a wash by halftime. So I look at Sam Laporta and I think his line at 45.5, 46.5, I think that's a steal. I think this dude gets 50 plus receiving yards. And that's definitely one of my favorite plays. Looking at another, Jahmyr Gibbs, I'm all in on him today. Not as a runner, but as a receiver. And I don't know which way you guys want to play this, but his receptions or his receiving yards, once again, you look at what was the game that the Lions have played so far this year that was a close competitive game. It was the Green Bay Packers. He went 10 targets, 10 receptions in that game. He had 30 receiving yards. But it shows, once again, when the team can get pressure on you, what does Jared Goff do? He looks to his outlet, Jahmyr Gibbs. He had 2 screens in that game. I look at him and I say, hey, there is no world where he is not featured in this offense. And if they were to go down and I'm playing the game script and I'm playing what Vegas has given me, he is going to be a check down outlet for Jared Goff. I like him to have 5 receptions. I think he goes out and has 50 plus receiving yards. So I like going about it there. And I found a sneaky play for the Baltimore Ravens side. I'm taking an under, and I'm taking a guy who has 3 total targets on the season so far this year. I'm taking a guy who has 6 total receiving yards this season. I'm taking a guy who everybody was talking about last year as the most overrated player on the Ravens. I still think he's productive as a blocker. I still think he's productive as a red zone threat. This is a guy, I wouldn't be shocked if he gets a touchdown, but that's 5 to 10 yards in the red zone. Mark Andrews' receiving line is at 35.5, and he's going up against the Lions, who have Brian Branch, who's one of the best cover safeties in the NFL. And when you look at what Mark Andrews does, Malik, he does one of 3 things. In the red zone, he's a target. On passing downs and running downs, he is a blocker. And on 3rd and long, 2nd and long, he is a check down guy for Lamar Jackson. When you look at his average depth of target, it is 2 yards. This dude is running check downs. This dude is running 5-yard outs. He's doing 5-yard curls. I'm expecting Mark Andrews to have a poor day. And like I said, he could score a touchdown, but give me his under 35.5 receiving yards. I think he finishes with 2 catches for 25 yards. Hammer the under for Mark Andrews. So
awesome. Keep Daniel, keep going. I'm just getting some stuff ready for your review.
No, you're good. Looking at this game as well, like I said, the Lions are 5.5 point underdogs. I do think that this line is a little wide. I like how the Detroit Lions looked last week, and I do think the Lions are a formidable team. And like I said, this is prime time. I'm a believer in the Baltimore Ravens, but if you're giving me 5.5 points, I think I'd be willing to take that. Like I said, I think that this is a 3-point game. And anytime for me personally, when you give me prime time and you're giving me 5.5 points, especially with a team the caliber of the Lions, listen, I'm down on the Lions this year. I think the Packers are a better team. I think that the Lions may not even finish with 10 plus wins, but this is a prime time game. And if you're giving me 5.5 points, I definitely like the look of that. And looking at some of these other props, looking at some of these rushing props, like you said, if there's another way you guys want to play this, I do think that there is a chance where David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, like I said, I'm not fully sold on them in the rushing attack. And David Montgomery is a guy I would be looking to fade today. Personally, he is their red zone threat. He is their goal line back. But you look at what he's done. He's had only 11 carries in each of the past 2 games. You look at a Ravens team who is one of the best against running backs. Last week, I understand Quinshawn Judkins had a good game, but it's because they don't have, anything else. And at that point, they were down. The Browns were down by 25 plus points. So I think that Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery could have a tough day sledding on the ground game. But for me, the way I would play it is I would definitely look to take David Montgomery's under because, like I said, he had 11 rushes both games, but
Cook,
5
Daniel
of those
Cook.
each time were in the red zone. So David Montgomery's 36.5. I think that's too much. I think David Montgomery finishes with about 25 to 30 rushing yards. So give me the under on David Montgomery. Sometimes it's a little tough and it's a little icky playing some unders, but a lot of times unders are very profitable, especially if you look at the matchup. So like I said, Mark Andrews under I love, David Montgomery under I love. And if I'm looking at any other props, once again, you guys can go down to the Patreon, check them out. But I think that there's also a potential opportunity for a guy like Justice Hill for the Baltimore Ravens to have a good game. I think that Derrick Henry is their running back, and he has one target all year. I think Derrick Henry could be fine in the passing game, but for me personally, I've seen how they utilize Justice Hill. I've seen him be in there on passing downs. I've seen him be involved in the screen game. I would not be surprised if Justice Hill broke off a big play in the screen game, and you can get his receiving yards at 15.5.
So, so one thing that I want to touch on really, really briefly, I have a few short plays for you guys, and I can't believe I even found this. I'm sorry if you said this already. I don't think you did, but there are two plays I really, really like, and I wouldn't mind sprinkling a touchdown on either one of them either. D-Hop over his reception prop is sitting at 1.5. D-Hop is a guy that's starting to emerge more in the Ravens offense. His prop is sitting at 1.5 receptions at -148. If you think D-Hop is going to get a touchdown, it seems like he's becoming a target for Lamar Jackson, especially when he's looking to get a touchdown. That's sitting at +340. That is a play that you can 100% hammer tonight. There's somebody weird, man, as well, man. There's somebody weird, that I think I might want to sprinkle a little bit on too. Zack Taylor. Am I saying this right? Tesla.
Beast.
His reception prop, Daniel, is sitting at 1.5, and it's plus money. All right. So if you think Zack Taylor is going to get 2 receptions today against the Ravens, which I think he's a guy that the Lions can sort of make a what would you say, like a go under the radar type of guy. I think they're going to be very, very understanding that they're going to try to get the ball to Sam Laporta. They're going to be trying to very understanding of, hey, let's try to get Jahmyr Gibbs out of the game. I think you could see a guy like Zack Taylor emerge. I want to know what his touchdown prop is at really quickly, because I want to make sure I give you guys the best value on that. Again, these are 2 shots in the darks that I think have a high chance of happening. If you think Zack Taylor is going to score a touchdown against the Ravens today, sitting at +630, sprinkle a little money on it. I think it's going to be one of those things where you could 100% cash in on time and time again. I think that he's going to have a big game. Dan, how has he looked? I know he had a big touchdown last week.
He's good.
How did he? What was his stat? Where was his line last week?
He's only had 1 reception in both games.
Yeah,
but both receptions were phenomenal.
Yeah.
The coach has raved about him. They traded up in the draft to get him. He's good. He's that guy. Like there's no qualms about it. He is phenomenal. It's only a matter of him getting more opportunity, and I feel like it's going to happen sooner rather than later. The dude there is a reason why they traded up for him. I call him a big slot. He's 6'4", big hands, strong hands, phenomenal 50-50 ball. This guy is one of my favorite wide receivers in this past draft class. And like I said, when you have a team that trades up for a player and it pans out in preseason, then it pans out in the first 2 weeks of the season, anytime they run 3 wide receivers sets, he should be out there. And I would actually sprinkle up a little more, and I like his longest reception as well, because I think he goes out and has a 25-yard catch, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's for a touchdown.
Yeah. Well, we hope that you guys again bet with us. Hope that you guys see this day as a profitable day for you as well. Again, all of our plays will be up on the Patreon. Joe says, see ya, checking out the Carton Show on Amazon Prime Live TV under the sports grid in the sports section. Well, that seems like a nice little plug for them. So I hope that you enjoy that, brother. Anyway, want to keep the conversation rolling on to why you all came here today. Most of you at least. You got to have a conversation about Zack Taylor. Got to have a conversation about the Cincinnati Bengals. Got to have a conversation about the constant missteps of the organization. I want to start this conversation off with a comment, though. Marissa, we can get this up from Trendsetter Rico. He says, I think this was him. Yeah, he says, why is there not constant public and media scrutiny about the egregious missteps by the front office and Katie Blackburn? That is a loaded question. And I'm going to answer it. I'm going to attempt to answer it. I think that when you have a small market team like the Bengals, although Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins have made the Bengals more mainstream. We have a small market team like the Cincinnati Bengals. I think that conversation kind of gets lost on the front office. I think that recently the conversation has started to shift more to the front office's missteps when it comes to protecting Joe Burrow. But I think that it's easy to pinpoint an organization like the Cowboys or the Giants because they're in big markets, right? So I think it's easy to kind of look at their general managers, their ownership group, and spotlight them when they're struggling. That is what I think there. I think that's why I don't think enough people care about the Bengals ownership, and they'd rather run with the lazy narrative, or that the Bengals are cheap. While that's true, yes, you don't shell out as much money as you did for Jamar or T. Higgins and do all that kind of stuff like that. So like, I feel like the true, like, I feel like the true pinpoints that need to be made are sometimes glossed over because of narratives that have existed around the Bengals for quite some time. As far as the lack of pressure from local media, I don't know if that's a question you were necessarily asking. So I won't answer that unless you ask me that, but I have a few thoughts on that as well. But in talking about Zack Taylor and his future with the Bengals, let's dive on this a little bit more, man. Yesterday, obviously, they lost. They had the worst franchise loss in history to the Minnesota Vikings, 38 points, right?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely abysmal. Offense couldn't get going. Defense showed up to a degree, but couldn't stop a nosebleed. Then you had special teams mistakes. You had people fumbling. You had Isaiah Rodgers, who just looked like an absolute world beater. Like an absolute world beater out there for the Minnesota Vikings, and the defense causing multiple turnovers. There was a lot that went into yesterday's whole game, and it was a lot to unpack, to be completely honest with you as well. I think that's why yesterday's recap show was so short. I think the biggest thing is, or I've taken away is, and I don't want to overreact. I really, really don't want to overreact, but I've been kind of saying the same thing for a little bit. I think the Bengals made a mistake. Hear me out. I think the Bengals made a mistake when deciding to stick by Zack Taylor after, I would say after Joe Burrow's ACL injury. What I mean by that is most coaches usually don't survive a season as bad as the Bengals had his opening season. And then the rookie quarterback gets hurt, and then you lose a bunch of games again, and then you get to stay on the job. That typically that's not how the NFL works. So I think he was very fortunate that he had a patient ownership group. I think he was very fortunate that this organization stuck by him through all the lapses, through all the issues. We all know what happens. Joe Burrow comes back, ACL, reconstructive surgery, MCL, the whole 9 yards. And then what do you know? They make a Super Bowl run. And then Bengals lose in the Super Bowl. They say, hey, you know what? We're going to invest in the offensive line and do some things to protect Joe Burrow. They did those things. They brought in guys like Orlando Brown Jr., so on and so forth. 𝗕𝗘𝗪. They revamped the entire offensive line. All the Super Bowl starters from that year are either on another team. I think most of them, if not all, are out of the league. Then you say, you know what? We're going to keep this train rolling. They go to the AFC Championship against the Kansas City Chiefs. They lose, obviously, and they still stick by Zack Taylor. Why is that important? Why are you bringing up the history, Malik? We're all Bengals fans. Right? We know what sort of happened. We understand what the organization did. Well, the organization had a couple of instances to move on from Zack Taylor. Let's start there. This is year 7 of the Zack Taylor era with the Cincinnati Bengals. So you had the ACL injury, and you had the terrible start. He was never getting fired after year 1, even though it was really, really bad. He was never getting fired. But year 2 might have been the optimal time to make a change. They chose not to. They stood by him. Then they made the Super Bowl, the AFC Championship. Didn't win the Super Bowl, lost the AFC Championship. They still stood by him. Those were 2 opportunities that most organizations would have said, maybe we need a change. You don't believe me? the Denver Broncos did it with John Fox and brought in Gary Kubiak. They wind up winning the Super Bowl. And again, right now we're seeing the same thing with the Dable and other people with the Giants, meaning the first time this arose, they could have moved on from him then. They chose not to. They stuck by him. So then from there, the AFC Championships, you go miss the playoffs, right? Right? Because that was the wrist injury.
Mm-hmm.
And then you miss the playoffs again, this time due to this time with a healthy Joe Burrow. So let's dissect this a little bit. You missed the playoffs because Joe Burrow wrist injury. That's a time ownership groups would have moved on from Zack Taylor. Most ownership groups would have moved on from Zack Taylor. Then you missed the season. You missed the playoffs again with a healthy Joe Burrow last season. And the corresponding move was to fire 𝗦𝗡𝗓𝗏, the defensive coordinator who's now having success with the Indianapolis Colts. That in its own right had its own flaws. That was a reason why he was moved on from. There was a lack of development there. I have a little bit of theory though, Daniel. I think 𝗦𝗡𝗓𝗏 didn't work out here in Cincinnati because I think that through all the praise and all the hype, obviously they lose Callahan to the Titans, the whole 9 yards. I think that Lou might have been looking almost toward becoming a head coach in the league. All right. And I think when that didn't happen and then things started looking really bad in Cincinnati, the conversation began, was his focus elsewhere? Was he looking past the Bengals? Was he more so looking towards, was he looking, towards his future essentially? I think that's why he didn't work out here. And I think that's why he's having success with the Indianapolis Colts. I really believe that. Because sometimes you need to reset, reevaluate, and realize where you are. My point of saying all this is the Bengals stood by Zack Taylor through all the BS where most organizations wouldn't have done so. And now he's faced with the same situation that he was faced with 2 seasons ago. Something that's very, very important to note. When the Bengals moved on from 𝗦𝗡𝗓𝗏, they brought Al Golden in. Most teams release a statement like they did the year Joe got hurt, right? Remember the year Joe Burrow got hurt? Stick with me. The year Joe Burrow got hurt from his wrist and they struggled and whatever the case may be, ownership released a statement. The Bengals are creatures of habits. They released a statement and they said, we stand by Zack Taylor. We believe in Zack Taylor, yada, yada. Take note of this. And I have this on good accord as well. They did not do that this year. When they moved on from 𝗦𝗡𝗓𝗏, they did not then reward Zack Taylor with a sign or signal of belief. They did not say, hey, we believe in Zack Taylor's vision. They did not come out. They did not comment. It was the playoffs were disappointing for all of us. None of us want this feeling, and we all understand the urgency that's here. There was no statement released. There wasn't even an extension given. And without knowing the true numbers on Zack Taylor's year, there's been conflicting reports. This is Zack Taylor's last year, or maybe next year's Zack Taylor's last year on the contract. I think he has one more year after this. But from my understanding, from people that I talked to, it was made crystal clear to Zack Taylor that under no circumstances were the Bengals expected to fail this year. They were expected to make a push in the playoffs, no matter what that looked like. And to be honest with you, it made sense because at the end of the day, if you look at it, they stuck by you through injuries. They stuck by you through bad seasons. They stuck by you through it all. That is why, in their minds, they probably went all in. They gave you Ja'Marr. They gave you T. They gave you all these things that you needed to succeed as a coach. They brought in Noah Fant. They made preseason acquisitions to try to help foster a winning football team. They've done everything for you. And this is the result that it's paid with. In the Bengals' mind, and again, I can only speculate here with this, at least. They've done everything to make sure Zack Taylor would have success as a coach. That has not been the case. I can assure you, Tom Jones. Tom Jones says Mike Brown will give Zack Taylor a leash because of Joe's injury. I disagree. I think that leash was already given before. And it's a lot different from the injury happening in week 5 and week 6. The injury happened in week 2. You have enough time to prepare. You have enough time to bring in people that you think are going to help the team. You had the entire offseason to build a winning program around this team. You had the entire offseason to do that, because guess what? Your job also is, in the event Joe Burrow goes down, you have a backup quarterback on this roster that can win in that event. I want to be super clear when I say this. I do not believe Zack Taylor is going to be absolved from any, or given any leeway on this front. I don't think so. The Bengals organization has too much respect for Zack Taylor and what he's done to fire him midseason. So that's not happening. They're going to see Zack Taylor through. They're going to. It's just a fact. Because he did take this team to a Super Bowl, because there is respect there. When you fire a coach midseason, that means it's unreconcilable differences. And guess what? You're pretty much just saying it's bad blood. There's not bad blood there. But there is a need to win. You don't invest like the Bengals have invested and then have it not pay off the way it has. This is now another season in which Joe Burrow's injured. This is another season in which the running game is not getting going. At some point, that does fall on the coaching staff. And you got to think that that's how this ownership group is thinking. But I was told, I spoke to a few members of that staff that was fired. And that's the part I didn't say. I spoke to a few members of that staff that were fired last year. And they told me it was made 100% abundantly clear that Zack had to win this upcoming year. Not that they were scapegoated, not that these individuals were scapegoated, but it was 100% clearly made to them that Zack had to win this year. And to be honest with you, it was moves that Zack Taylor didn't make. This was from ownership group. The ownership made these decisions. Zack was, I didn't want to make these decisions, but they're telling me I have to do something. We have to do something. So this whole thought of, oh, well, I'm the reason why we got rid of Marion Hobby, or I'm the reason why we got rid of Frank, or I'm the reason why we got rid of Lou. We had to make changes. Those weren't Zack Taylor decisions. Maybe the Frank Pollock one was, but those were not Zack Taylor made decisions. I don't know if that was been made crystal clear to you guys. Those are moves that came from higher up. And those were moves that were in the work after they lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers and Russell Wilson put up 400 passing yards on them. These moves were always in the works. So again, if you follow any of the tea leaves from any coach that's about to get fired or is on their last leg, what do they do to save face? They get rid of a coordinator. They make some type of change because somebody had to answer for the Bengals' abysmal season. The people that had to answer for the Bengals' abysmal season are no longer here. There was no faith given in Zack Taylor to get the ship corrected. There was no message put out of we believe in Zack. There was none of that. And the weird thing about the Bengals organization, you don't hear from them throughout the season. So it's this hanging weird cloud of what is this going to look like? Again, I spoke with multiple people, and what I was told is Zack Taylor understands there's no more excuses. He has to win this year. He has to win this year. He has to find a way to win this year. Simply losing, especially in the fashion in which they lost yesterday, won't get it done. Because you know what yesterday's loss said? It was bigger than Joe Burrow. Daniel, yesterday's loss was bigger than Joe Burrow. Everyone, listen to me clearly. Yesterday's loss was bigger than Joe Burrow. Yesterday's loss showed lack of preparation. Yesterday's loss falls squarely on the head coach. That is when you lose by that big of a margin, that is what that loss says. That's what it says. There's no other way to slice it. And that's not something that a team that in their mind went all in to do. That's not what they do. They find a way to push forward. They were playing a backup as well. And they still gave you the worst loss in franchise history. The scapegoats are out. The scapegoats are out. There's no more scapegoating defensive coordinators, offensive line coaches, defensive line coaches. There's no more of that. Because when you did that, You pretty much said these were the individuals, and if these individuals were better at their job, we would be winning. So now the focus is in on you, Zach. You can only play that card once. You can only play that card once. The moves that were made were desperation moves. Marvin Lewis made them too. And guess what? Marvin Lewis was on the job for 16 years. When you make those moves, you're pretty much pressing alert, alert, mayday, mayday, ship going down. When you fired 𝗦𝗡𝗪, you don't realize you signed your own ticket. Sorry, not you, 𝗦𝗡𝗢𝗡. But you had to deliver that news. You, when you moved on from Arian Hobby, when you moved on from Frank Pollock, you pressed the alert, alert, mayday, mayday, mayday. So again, I say all this to say, ship is sinking slowly, but surely. That is on you. There's no more blaming Lou. Remember, Lou fault. That's what it was last year. Frank Pollock fault. Who's to blame now? At what point do you look inward and you say, maybe I give up play calling? Does that help? I have no idea, but we're talking about desperation at this point. And it's a shame we're talking about this about a 2-1 team. That should not be the thought process. But when you lose your starting quarterback in Joe Burrow, when the offense instills no hope, no faith, and yeah, turnovers were a part of it, 100%. But guess what? It does not matter. Nobody's going to look into the X's and the O's. People are going to go down to it and they're going to say it was a loss. It's a loss. And yes, Les Hernandez, it's a lot that needs to change within the Bengals organization. But is it, for in their minds, is it easy to change structurally? Or is it easy to change from the coach's standpoint? Remember, Zach survived a lot of changes that this organization implemented. I do not believe, let me be the first person in media to say, I do not believe he will survive this if this does not get corrected. I don't think rattling off 8 wins, 9 wins is enough. Daniel.
Yeah, man. Like you said it beautifully. And I think the couple things that I kind of wrote down when you were talking that were the biggest sticking points is, hey, the notion that the Bengals, because, you know, they've done it in the past, are going to stick by this guy and so on and so forth. I think we could kind of dispel that with even some of the things that they've done recently, right? To their credit, right? We said that they weren't going to pay a T. Higgins. We said that they weren't going to, you know, pay even Trey Hendrickson, get him done this season. We said a lot of things about this team, and they're at least trying to change it because I feel like they are starting to sense the urgency. And for me, the head coach position is kind of the last straw in that trifecta of paying your players, drafting, and having the coaches there that are going to succeed. And you laid it out perfectly. There is no world. And for me, the line, at least right now that I am drawing, maybe it changes later on in the season, but the line for me is playoffs. That's my line right now is, hey, if you don't make the playoffs, no matter what, it's done.
Yeah.
I can't see a world where a team has this level of quarterback and for 3 straight seasons, because that's the fact. If the Bengals miss the playoffs this year, that is 3 seasons that they would have gone and missed the playoffs. And you name another team that has done that and
not
the head coach
surviving
has
that.
stayed.
Now, and I will realize the Bengals really do. They have done a very good job of understanding their fan base. I know this has been they've been given a lot of flack for this in years past, but the pressure from social media is, remember, it wasn't like that years and years ago when Marvin was coach majority of his tenure. Social media wasn't as big as it is now. And guess what? The pressure is mounting. The pressure to get this thing corrected is 100% mounting. You know something I find interesting, Daniel? The Bengals have the worst offense in football right now. That's what it looks like. That's what it looks like. They have a terrible offense right now. Things are just not ticking for them. Now I could be being a little bit facetious by saying that without having the numbers in front of me, but you know, Jeff Howe of The Athletic did a poll where he polled, I believe he polled general managers, and I want to make sure I say this correctly. This was an expert poll of 31 coaches and executives conducted by Jeff Howe of The Athletic. Okay. And I want you to take note of this. And the poll was, who are the best offensive play callers in the NFL? Well, Sean McVay, Marissa, if you can get that up as well. Sean McVay received 25 votes as like leading by far and away. Kyle Shanahan was second. Ben Johnson was third. Kevin O'Connell was fourth. Andy Reid's there. Josh McDaniels there. Cliff Kingsbury's there. Liam Cohen's there. Matt LaFleur's there. Sean Payton. Mike McDaniel is even there, receiving 1 vote. Clint Kubiak receiving 1 vote. Todd Monken receiving 1 vote. Zack Taylor got 0 votes. Now, understand something. For you being an offensive-minded coach, okay, and your offense is not having success, what does that say? If you're a coach, right, listen, here's the one caveat when you are a head coach and you also are a play caller. You can't play the card of, well, let me fire my offensive coordinator when I call plays myself. You can't play that card. So, of course, the bigger spotlight is going to be on you. What this is saying is Zack Taylor is more of a Joe Burrow merchant than the latter. Zack Taylor still has a losing record without Joe Burrow as the head coach, which is understandable. That's okay. The NFL was tough to win games. But the success that he's had without Joe hasn't been good. It's the reason why every Bengals fan said sinking ship when Joe Burrow went down. The reason why Bengals fans didn't think that they'd be able to win. And 915 Tiger says, Zach is not creative in any way. Listen, I think more so the public outcry from the fan base is something that the organization is also paying attention to. Daniel, this offense is abysmal right now. This thing is not looking good right now. It's just not looking good. But continue.
No, man, it's not, and that's why I'm gonna do something. And I'm curious to see where the numbers come. I'm gonna post something on the TWSN website. But just looking at this, I've looked at 10 head coaches. Not one that I've seen so far has survived 3 missed playoffs. Kevin Stefanski, the most he's missed 2 in a row, and this season upcoming would still be 2 in a row. This is 3 missed playoffs in a row is abysmal. And that's, like I said, I hate to keep harping on that, but it is extremely important because that is more than, like you said, that is more than Joe Burrow. They have, from Burrow's injury, that is 15 games left in the season. In Zach's words, we have 15 games left. Now, there are 17 games. 1 game does not make a break. Okay, you have to stand on that. You have to. This team is too talented. Like I said, I've seen teams with Kenny Pickett at quarterback. I've seen teams, Joe Flacco at quarterback. There have been worse quarterbacks and less talented teams that have made the playoffs. You have to find a way. And like I said, I hate to sound like a Debbie Downer, but I've had gripes with Zack Taylor. You've had gripes with Zack Taylor. And I feel like these gripes are fair.
And let me be very clear when I say this. Guys, I am not like national media. I moved my life from New Jersey to Cincinnati to improve media. I want to see the Bengals have success. This is not like Pat McAfee or somebody else getting on a show and is ripping on the Bengals, calling them the Bungles. This is not that. This hits home for me. I love the Bengals. I grew up rooting for the Bengals. So when I speak from a place of knowing. I speak from a place of passion. I want to see them well. Let me be clear, because I know when I talked about Zack Taylor once, people said you never liked him or you have a personal attack. I sat and had a 15-minute conversation with Zack Taylor away from all media. It's just me and him one-on-one, just talking, and him telling me, I love your work. That's awesome to see. Where I'm coming from is a place of wanting to see this team do better. Okay? It's not a personal attack on Zack Taylor. This is me saying I like Zack Taylor as a person. I think he is a great man, a great dude. I don't think he's a great head coach. I don't think he is a great play caller. Might be a good head coach, but I don't think he's a great play caller. And unfortunately, when you're the head coach of the team and you also call plays, the two get marred together. They do. It's just a fact. And right now, If you're the Bengals, you have to think about it from this standpoint. Like, to your point, no coach has survived 3 straight seasons of missed playoffs. I think it's even bigger to look at it from this standpoint. No coach is could be able to survive, with as talented as this team is, all the talent you were given. Nobody can survive that. It's not real. It's not realistic. I don't like coming on this show talking about the demise of a head coach, a man who wants a job. But I will come on this show and talk about how this thing can improve. And this is a fact. I think the Bengals are probably better off without Zack Taylor beyond this year. There's no way you're getting Paycor Stadium filled to the brim, maximum capacity, if Zack Taylor is the head coach next year, if this thing doesn't turn around. And that's a fact. Daniel.
Mm-hmm. It is. And that's the part where you have to capitalize. And us as fans and everybody who's watching this, they understand now, especially, like, bro, like, Super Bowl windows are not forever. You have to capitalize. You look at the rest of the NFL, you've got maybe 5 NFL teams that can look at the past 4 seasons and say, hey, we've had a chance. We felt it that late in the playoffs, we could actually win the Super Bowl. What do you think Colts fans have felt recently? What do you think Jaguars fans, what do you think Texans fans have felt recently? When they get a glimmer of hope, it's like, holy crap, this is something different. The Bengals have had consistently over the last 3 seasons. The way I look at it is, hey, how do you view your team heading into the season? And how do you view your team heading into the playoffs? I can confidently say there is not more than 5 teams that over the past 4 seasons have felt like they belong in that Super Bowl conversation. And the only other teams you could say is the Eagles, the Bills, and probably the Ravens and the Chiefs.
Well, the fact of the matter is, like, I think the Bengals are sometimes slow to change. You look at it, I'm looking at it. They're on their 3rd coach in with the Chargers, right? Since Justin Herbert took over, he had Anthony Lynn, he had Brandon Staley, and now he has Harbaugh. This thing finally looks like it's turning in the right direction for them. It's okay to switch changes. It's okay to say, this guy is not the answer. It's okay. Let me be also clear on something. The Bengals would be a very attractive job. It'd be a very, very attractive job. You'd have a lot of people that would want to come in and coach the Cincinnati Bengals. More so because of who the quarterback is. That all being said, I think it's a lazy take to just simply say, just hire Brandon Staley. Just hire what's his name? Joe Brady. I think that's a little bit of a lazy take. I think that the coaching search needs to be cast wide. And I think you want people with you should favor experience, but I also think you should look for somebody. If you're going to hire a young coach, you want somebody that's truly going to be impactful and game changing. Joe Brady is the easy option for people to say, because obviously the LSU connection there, and him being the passing game coordinator at LSU when Steve Eisminger was the offensive coordinator back when Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase were all at LSU. It's an easy fit to say that. It also comes down to, what do you favor more? You favor offense? Do you favor defense? Traditionally, the Bengals' history has been offense. Marvin Lewis was an outside hire, and he was their longest tenured head coach. So it's a lot that goes into it. To me, when we talk about offensive-minded coaches, one coach comes to mind, Joe Brady. When we talk about defensive coaches, another coach comes to mind, Brian Flores. Like, there's a lot that goes into that. Do you want to do in-house hire? And do you want to promote Dan Pitchard? So you say, hey, we don't have a lot of change on the defense side of the ball. We believe in Al Golden. We think Al Golden will implement a system there. To me, there's a lot that goes into it when we talk about moving off of the head man. Some fixes seem easy. Some fixes seem, I don't know. I know this is an attractive job, but it's a loaded question when we talk about who the right man is, because I think that each one brings its own level of difficulty. If you hire a defensive-minded coach, you better hope that they hire an offensive coach that can uplift whatever flaws or deficiencies they have. And you gotta think that whatever position group that coach said favors, the front office will cater to that need more. So if you're saying we're hiring a defensive coach, well, the offensive line might not get fixed. You hire offensive-minded coach, well, the defense might still struggle. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot that goes into it. It's a lot to unpack. I don't have the answer for you guys September 22nd. I do not have the answer right now. But what I can tell you right now is Zach's time is ticking.
Mm-hmm.
He's got to get it right. And, the pressure, I always felt the pressure. It's the National Football League. You always feel pressure. This is a different level of pressure. Daniel, bring us home.
Yeah, man, you're right, and I'm always excited to look at like these new names for head coaches and whatnot. But at the end of the day, it comes down to Zack Taylor and the staff first. So for me, I'm going to be looking at the staff. And same thing, you brought up a great point, like Dan Pitcher has to come to mind when you think about these candidates. But at the same time, he's got to prove it as well. Like, he is still the offense coordinator. So for me, if I'm looking at the next 14 games of the season, I'm looking for a team to show some fight. And I'm looking to see Dan Pitcher, what impact does he make, as well as for Zack Taylor. You hope for the guy's sake, right? He doesn't lose a job, and you hope for the guy's sake that they turn it around and have a bounce back game against the Broncos. But I think it's going to take some colossal changes. And what I would be expecting and what I'm hoping out of this team, I do hope that if they rattle off a couple of losses, I do hope that Zack Taylor at least tries to throw his hand and say, hey, I'm going to give up play calling duties. And I hope to see, kind of like you mentioned, the last, the last lifelines of, hey, I fired this guy. I'm not saying fire anybody right now, but they just fired 𝗬𝗓𝗏. This is clearly Zack Taylor's last chance. And I thought you laid it out beautifully to where it makes no questions. There really are no questions that this should be his last chance if they don't make the playoffs. And you've got to see some fight, because I saw zero fight out of this team. I saw a team that got punched in the mouth. I saw a team that lost in the trenches. And I hate to say it, I look at this team and I do see a talented team. I do see
You hate to say, I would love to say that. You see a talented team, but you see a team that's being underutilized. You see a team that's not getting it done. That's just a reality. That's just a fact.
And for sure. And P. Crasher said, is there any way we can win one of these next 3 games?
Yeah, for sure. Listen, I'm not going to act like this team is talent devoid. It's not. The fact of the matter is, you have a coach that continuously gets outcoached, does not understand how to, situational, coaching. It's a lot that goes into it. It's a lot to unpack. 100% the Bengals could win one of these next games. It's the NFL. I think this team is extremely talented. And I think, if anything, this team has a chip on their shoulder. How do they bounce back? We will see. It can't get much worse than it could, but it shouldn't get much worse than what it did the other day, what it did yesterday. That was just abysmal, every which way that you look at it. But I will say, again, the pressure's on. The pressure's on in Cincinnati. The pressure's on to win. If you guys could do us a favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or when we upload content from the TWS in studios. Remember, we're live every Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 10:30 a.m. for the Sit Down Morning Show. We'll be back live again on Wednesday at 7 p.m. for State of the Jungle, as we discuss all things Cincinnati Bengals. And I'm sure Evan and Logan will have a whole lot to say about this atrocious game, looking ahead towards the Broncos game. Remember, there's only one way you should be waking up, talking sports, enjoying sports, and having the conversation, and that is the right way. We'll see you guys next time.
This is TWSN. You ain't heard about us yet. Well, you